and he's already in front of me to begin with, right? Because he's a
Yep.
tank and he's like in the front of the pack. So he's like they've like already dived here, and I'm just now rounding the corner. He doesn't even have an orb on him yet. By the time I orb him, he's already dead.
Okay.
Like that's what it feels like a lot of the time.
So diving from all the way, about where was he standing actually when he called the dive the soldier? Where would you say?
Oh, I don't remember. Okay, so
I
I
think it
think
was
this is
somewhere around here, right?
I think it's somewhere around here too, that I actually wasn't a part of personally.
Right,
But it's
right,
just
right.
like when I'm with the group, like this is what it feels like happens a lot when we call dives. It's like the target is usually either in the middle of the team or super far in the back. And then pours almost inevitably it just like dives first almost every time.
Well, I do agree that getting from here all the way onto this top high ground is it's doable for a dive, but it's definitely going to stretch you out and leave you open to a counter dive. So what you could look at doing is circling around onto this side of the pillar and trying to get closer this way. The other option would be to go around into one of these
To all
tunnels
the way
over here.
behind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
just straight up
Because I think
walking forward, claiming space for your team by being somewhere, and then when you get to here, then you commit the movement abilities to make sure everyone can get there.
I think that makes sense too, because like what also it's like so he like they dive like super far back. Their Winston just dives here, and then all of a sudden like I'm on Zen, right? So you're on me. I'm backing out this way to try to LOS,
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't orb anybody because they're all over there.
Right.
Can't see them because I'm getting zoned out by this Winston.
Well, as Zenyatta, you
Yeah.
pretty much can't escape a Winston if they've dived on you successfully. Your best option is to challenge him inside of his bubble and or make your way to the relative safety of your tanks. So you should actually be walking towards the fight in that situation.
Okay. So it's
Just
like
'cause it's
even if
because you have no mobility. If you were playing
right,
like Lucio, then sure,
it'd
disengaging
be
might
right,
work.
right,
But
right. Be in there with them if I was on Lucio, right? Like the entire
yeah,
team, it
yeah,
would essentially be like a quote unquote death ball dive almost, because Mercy
yeah,
can go too, and we'd all just be up here or in this general area together.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so I agree. Tanks probably should be a little bit more patient when calling dives, based on this example specifically that I remember seeing.
And I think maybe, and I don't know if this makes sense, but it's just like I don't know if we're almost not like committing too many people to the dive, but it's like obviously depending on what we're running, right? So like usually on attack we start with like Mango on Tracer, Diva, Winston, and Forest is generally Pharah or Junkrat. On this map, probably Pharah.
Well, I
So
don't know if these are actual like used terms, but the terms I like to use are hard dive and soft dive, where a soft dive is it's basically anything less than the whole team diving a target together, and a hard dive is like everybody WM1s and they all tunnel vision onto a single target
yeah,
together and they burst them down all together. That's a hard dive, and a hard
right,
dive is actually what you're aiming for. If you're doing it perfectly, every dive is a hard dive. Whereas a soft dive is like you get your Winston and a Genji on the enemy support, and usually that's what
right,
ends up
right,
happening around this level of play. Even in my games, that's usually what ends up happening is you get like half the team onto one of the
right.
enemy supports, and that's usually enough. But it's not as efficient as a hard dive.
That makes sense. I was just thinking more like if we're diving targets that far back, if we like if it's like a soldier alone on high ground, for example, and we send like just fours and just if it goes Genji or Tracer or whatever. So like just one tank and one DPS to go and just kind of like poke at him, see if they can kill him, zone him back, and to support
So
him.
that's another thing. Actually, this is something I've only recently started doing because I've been, as you know, I'm a Reinhardt main, and I can play Winston, but Reinhardt is my best tank. So one of the things I
Right.
recently learned how to do is something I call tickling the high ground.
Yeah.
I learned this from watching Overwatch League games, actually, and it's a very useful little thing to do, which is you jump up onto the high ground, not with the intent to get any kills or actually claim the space, but just to make ground harder for the enemy to hold. So like me,
Right.
say there's an enemy soldier up here, right? And he's up here, and he's uncontested, shooting down for free. He's just dealing tons of damage, putting in work.
Right.
You don't have to kill him, right? But if you get up
You just
here,
make his life
you
hard.
tickle him a little bit, bring him down to half. He runs down into this building where he can't actually deal any of that damage. And then right before you leave, you place your bubble as he gets you down to like 300 health. And then you jump back down, get healed up. You go back up, rinse, wash, repeat. And he never actually gets the value, even though you're never actually getting the kill. And I call that tickling the high ground.
You're just keeping him from doing his job so that we can do our jobs better.
Exactly.
I think that makes sense. I think that's part of the thing. Like, we're diving kind of with the intent to kill every time, but I think sometimes we don't always think about if it's like actually viable or not. Especially because
well,
like
sometimes
if it's
you
like
have to commit resources to deal with a threat.
Right.
Like if there's like you can't always do a hard dive. A hard dive is the optimal outcome, right? Like you always want to do a hard dive. But if there's like say you're on Anubis and you're defending and you want to hard dive the offense as soon as they get on the point, that's great. But if they have a Widowmaker hanging back at the entrance to point, you have to commit a dive tank to that. You can't not. You're gonna lose the fight if you don't. So
dive tank or Genji, one or the other.
You have to commit something to it to neutralize the DPS.
Or at least chase her away.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think, like, weirdly enough, like, I think we actually do have a lot of issues with Widow for that exact reason, because they are able to play so far away and still get value.
It's really difficult. I admit, it's really difficult. Even the pros have a hard time dealing with it, because a good Widow will know, well, a good team, rather, will know where to place their Widow so that they can support her and basically counter dive the allocated resources that the other team has put onto her. It's like you see it all the time in Overwatch League, where just on that same point, actually, they'll have the Widow up there and they'll sort of feign an initiation onto point to get someone to go out and attack the Widow. Then they'll jump back and dive the dive tank that's on the Widow, and then they're going into the next fight a 6v5. So it's really difficult, I admit it.
But, like, not even that though, or sometimes, I don't know if you remember, but I think this was FaZe? Fuel, or not Fuel, but Envy, like before Owl actually started, but one of the contenders matches, where I think it was Fact Fiction literally used all of Primal Rage just to kill Taimu. Got him like almost all the way back to spawn, but like now he's back in their spawn alone, right? And like all he's done is kill the Widow.
I mean,
but like, is it really
that
worth?
depends more on the macro strategy of what's happening. Like,
yeah.
On defense second point, trading one for one like that is totally fine. And with Primal Rage specifically, it's also fine to commit that to get a single kill if you have to. Like I don't really have a problem with that, because you have such a massive spawn advantage on defense. On offense, I don't know about that.
Peace be upon you.
It depends heavily on the exact situation and the strategy you're going for.
For Ike. Because I feel like if you're on defense, you don't want to commit that resource, right? Because their spawn, like on here, I feel like attacker spawn is closer, isn't it?
For first point, attacker spawn is closer, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was talking more like 2CP or the last point of a payload.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think the other one was on Hollywood, so it was more like this, where he point B. So like Taimu had the spawn advantage at that point. So then it was just kind of like, I think even the commentators were like that. I mean, they had to deal with him. But
yeah, that does sound iffy.
It was like potentially not the best option.
See, that's when you might want to resort more to the tickle the high ground strat. So like you get up, if you have to, pop Primal Rage, push the Widow back, chase her a little bit. Once she used grapple, if she has to use grapple to escape you, that's good. That means you have 8 seconds without her being on the high ground. You can go back and help your team for 8 seconds. Your jump will be back by the time she gets back, so you go back and repeat the process. You don't ever have to actually kill her.
Yeah, because I think what happens is like, so especially on this map, Widow starts up here, then she's like getting free damage all over the place, someone dies, and then eventually she just stands right here and shoots everybody, and like, even though she's right here, like, we can't do anything about it.
So let me pull up that doc actually. What is your strat for defense on first point?
So we actually haven't used this strat yet. It's just like me mulling over what we typically see on this map. We try to run on this map. I will admit, talking to Forrest about this, I will admit we possibly try to run too much Ana, but I mean,
Anna is a little bit underrated. She's definitely the weakest support, but she's by no means unplayable. I mean, the pros are doing it. I never thought it was impossible. I mean, everyone keeps saying, like, oh, there's so many barriers in the game. Of course she's not doing well. But there were this many barriers in the game before Mercy got her buff, and Anna was still the top dog. So it's just a perception
and the
thing,
thing is, like, it's not... I think, honestly, like, on this map in particular, like, this map, Numbani, a handful of others, like, most of these hybrid maps, the first point especially, like, personally, I really like playing Anna here. And I'm not even a great Anna, you know what I mean?
This is a
like,
pretty nice Anna map.
This is great, because it's like, you just sit... So here's what I have...
so I'm looking at your the placement of your basically resource allocation, the picture you have here for your choke defense. So first off, Orisa Hog is an amazing combo. I really question Orisa Diva as a combo. It's just
I was thinking about that because, like, here's the thing with
their strategies just are, what they're good at is just so opposite of each other. They don't really synergize at all.
Right. I think that's the thing, though, that is sometimes a plus, because there is this high ground, there is a lot of Widow, there is a lot of there is a lot of Pharah on this map in particular. So I feel like when you're running like an Orisa Hog, it is so much more difficult to deal with the Pharmacy, because you don't have, like, Diva can pretty much solo Pharah on her own, right? And if nothing else, like, you know, we'll have Mango on Soldier, but he's gonna need help. And if we don't have Zen, he's not gonna have Discord.
So,
so it's really difficult to take them out, and I think at least with the Diva, like, you can have support and like physical,
if you're gonna run the Diva, I would recommend also running a Reinhardt, so that if she needs backup, like if she, say the Diva tries to commit to killing the Pharah up here on the high ground alone, she sees the opening, she goes to duel the Pharah, but oh no, all of a sudden the enemy team is here inside the computer cafe and the Diva has no thrusters to get out. The Orisa can't do anything about that. At least if you have a Reinhardt, you can charge in here, start swinging from behind. That's something. There's a little bit of synergy because both tanks have a mobility ability. With Orisa Diva, there's just no synergy. So if you really need to run the Diva, which I totally get your reasoning for it, that strategy makes total sense, you need to commit another main tank with some mobility as well. So don't combo the Orisa Diva. You should do a Reinhardt Diva if you're going to do that.
Even... It's interesting, because, like, the way that I think about it, like, Orisa kind of holds here. Also, her shield is, like, probably one of the most annoying obstacles in this game right now.
Absolutely. So here's the thing: Orisa herself is not she doesn't control space very. Okay, well, no, she does control space really well. What I mean is that she doesn't control the space in front of her very well, and that's why you usually see her paired with Roadhog, because the halt hook combo. So here, hold on. I really wish I could, like, draw.
I never thought about it. Okay,
I really wish I could draw here in this 3D space like I can. So, like, say you're playing Reinhardt, and I'm just gonna use the bubble to symbolize the space that you're claiming. So you're playing Reinhardt, you're hanging out around here. You know, this is the space you've claimed for your team, right? And this is the space you have. With Orisa, it's the same deal. You're hanging out around here, and this is the space you have. She can put a little bit of pressure out here because she has a ranged primary fire, but it's not really the kind of thing that's like, oh god, we can't peek. But if you throw a Hog into that mix, all of a sudden she's controlling the space in and around these corners that she doesn't even have line of sight to, because you can halt hook people out of here, and that is a deadly combo. So you can't even stand where I'm standing right now safely. Like, this becomes this becomes enemy space if the enemy has an Orisa Hog here. So that's why that combo is so strong.
Yeah.
So I would recommend either switching the Diva to a Roadhog, because if the Widow is up here, you can actually halt her off the high ground. I've done that with my team when there's a Hanzo hanging out up here. I was like, hey, Ballots, you want to just throw a halt up there for me? And he's like, sure, bud. And I'm like, thanks. And then I hooked the Hanzo right out of his halt. And so that works out fine. If the Widow is hanging out all the way back here, she actually shouldn't be a problem if you're playing sightlines correctly. Like, she actually shouldn't be a problem at all.
Well, like, if she's hanging out there, Orisa can kind of zone her out on her own.
A little bit, yeah.
I think it also depends, because the thing is, like, what typically happens. So I think the two biggest potential threats, right, is like you either have a good Widow on the other team, or you have a good Pharah on the other team. And it's like what you want to bring to the fight, I feel ideally what you want to bring to the fight is a little bit different for each one. So then, so for instance, if you're running a Risa Hog, right, but they're running Pharmacy, how would you deal with that? Like, do you try to halt the Pharah and hook, do you try to do the halt hook in midair?
So you definitely need a hit scan of some sort on defense on Eichenwald. That is obviously
100%.
like 100%. You need a hit scan. McCree, Widow, Soldier, any of the three will work. It's whatever your DPS's comfort pick is. Technically, Sombra is also a soft counter to Pharah. Because her damage, while not very high, is very consistent at long ranges. Well, not long ranges, but like sort of medium long ranges. I don't recommend that, but it's technically an option. So if they've got, hold on, if they have a Pharah and you're hunkered down here, you know what? Let me go change to Orisa actually. That'll make this easier.
So, I think it's like, if you're, because if we're playing Orisa Hog into a Pharah, and I feel like at our level, it's probably more like 70% chance it's going to be a Pharah, 30% chance it's a Widow.
Here's the thing, like I said before, to stop someone on the enemy team from getting value, killing them is not the only option, right? So if you're holding here, and you see, oh my god, they have a Pharmacy, what are we going to do about that? Our hit scan's dead. The correct response is to back up to here and play this sightline. She can't shoot you around the corner at all. Same goes for the Widow, actually.
Right.
So if you've got the shield here, or a little bit closer than that,
actually,
but if you've got like the shield like here, sorry, you shield in a second, like here, and your DPS are hanging out around this corner, that Pharah can't do crap to you. You can take pot shots at that Pharah all day. Now, if the Pharah is smart, she'll rotate around the other side and come around this way, and that's when you want to sort of, you just want to check your corners, like have the McCree or Soldier or Widow check over here, make sure she's not doing that. While she's going over, that should be pretty free time to take the shots. But even as she's doing that, you can play the sight lines over here, hang out in this building if you have to, disengage fully to the back of point. There's all sorts of ways you can play sightlines to avoid the damage from long-range heroes like that.
Do you think you know what, now that I think about it, maybe we should be running Rein and Ana here instead, because, I was actually just thinking about it, because, if we don't run Hog, combo that, Bingo and Pores have been doing really well with this, where instead of doing halt and hook, they do halt and then right click, and it works.
That sounds fancy.
It works very nicely. They were getting a lot of picks together, but Mango obviously typically does not play Zenyatta for us, which is unfortunate that we can't just have Mangoes, for the entire team. But anyway, it's like if we had a Zen, I think if we ran the D.Va, you still have some, you might not have the tank synergy, but you still have synergy with the rest of the team, right?
So yeah, I would say, going back to what I was saying before though, ditch either the D.Va or the Orisa. The two just have no synergy. They just don't go well together. So if that means you switch to a Rein D.Va, that would work for what you're trying to accomplish. What my team runs is we stick to the Orisa Hog. We think that's the way to go. Now, if you don't have the D.Va, that does mean Junkrat hanging out in the computer cafe, definitely no. He can hang out sort of over this way as long as he keeps a conch mine to disengage. But this is as aggressive as I would get with a Junkrat if you don't have the D.Va to peel for him.
Or I guess you could even kind of play back here.
Back here,
because there's the mini down here.
The only thing I'm worried about is that you're very far away from the rest of your team. If they engaged onto your team, you might even have to commit a conch mine to get to the fight to make it a 6v6. Otherwise, it's a 5v6.
That's true.
Other than that, yeah, as far as safety goes, it's not a horrible spot to hole up because you can duck in here. And again, if you're holding away from the team, you need to keep a conch mine to commit to mobility.
Maybe we do the Rhine Diva then, because I do like, because we like, you know, we're gonna run Junkrat here. Like Junk in this just is so strong. Like
I
you
agree.
block out
It's a great little
so
angle to
much
play.
damage here.
You can get
And
through
also you
all
have this
3 of the
mini
entrances.
play off of. You can duck around high ground. Like you can trap someone, kind of come down here. You can, you know, deal with whatever.
I think
And
that's a
then
perfectly
I
fine
think,
way to go. You do have to be careful though, as
Yeah.
Reinhardt is a bit more susceptible to getting sniped through than Orisa, because if you put your barrier down at the wrong time. So I mean, I would say just exercise a little bit of caution. You know, give warnings when you're gonna drop the barrier, and that sounds like a perfectly fine strategy to me. You could practice that and you could run that, and I think it would do just great.
So like if they're running Widow, I mean, unless she's literally on the bridge, like you can hide behind the car, you can hide, like play a little, like Anna can play a little closer to here if need be, and duck behind, you know, and like Mango can come here too.
Oh, Anna's
I
got
think-
so much space to work with back here. If there's no
Yeah.
Pharah, this is a pretty nice place to hide, because
also
it's out
there's
of the line of
this
sight of the
mini-
Widow, and you've got the
Also just money.
no, it's shield closer than that still. You've got the shield to help protect you from a Widow on the top of the bridge. Actually, the Widow wouldn't be on top of the bridge anyways if you had the Orisa Hog, or the Diva. Yeah, this is a great spot for Ana to be, just in general. If there was a Pharah, I would be a little bit more scared of putting the Ana here. If there's a Pharah, the Ana should be over here, because like I said, sightlines. But yeah, so that, in general, you may notice the pattern here. The solution to long-range damage dealers is play sightlines.
Yeah,
So,
I think we do that enough. Like
as far as
a
your
lot
actual
of the times,
team
what
composition and where everyone is standing, I think those are the only 2 notes.
Okay. Because I think part of like what you're saying too is like, see, your shield is here. If the shield is up here, like, then the Widow has a lot more space because she just shoots over the shield, right? So I think like we just need to be
Well, I mean, here's
more
the thing.
aware.
The Widow should not be on the bridge. The Widow should die if she goes on the bridge. Whether you have the Diva to zone her off or the Halt Hook combo to just straight up kill her, she should not be able to stand on this bridge.
Right.
She just shouldn't be able to. Unless you're running Rein Zarya, which you really shouldn't be running on this point. There are better options.
Yeah.
Mainly the 2 that we covered.
Like, I agree. I like this position. I want to say this is probably where I usually start on Ana, depending on what happens. I might, like, if they try to go around here to the side, like, I might rotate a little bit to try to, like, I don't know, keep something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, so I think I think that's part of the other, maybe one of the other things that we're not as practiced at, but I'd like to get better at too, is like, not just knowing when to disengage, but like, when do we set up from, like, you know what I mean? Like, when do we decide, like, okay, we've lost the choke, we need to step back on the point? Like, is it just after we start losing people, and then you just, like, everyone starts trying to pull back here?
Well, when you... it's... You know, I've never really thought about how to define this, because, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I tell you is sort of really ingrained into just my muscle memory and the way I play. I'm not really consciously thinking about when to disengage. I just sort of know. So if I'm thinking about it...
Because I think what ends up happening is, like, we don't, like, so we're fighting out here, right? We're like, some of us, like, the supports will be disengaging, but, like, Pores won't realize, then he dies, and it just, like, cascades, and everyone dies, and we don't even get a chance to hold the point, because,
Well,
like,
that is...
we just become scattered.
Well, can you guess what I'm about to say? That's what a shot caller's for.
Yep.
That's what a shot caller's for. To make sure that you are not all over the place and that everybody knows exactly when the disengage is happening. And speaking of which, it would be up to the shot caller to decide when to disengage. I would say the default state is to see it out.
Stop right there.
But yeah, like, also, I don't know, what do you think about, like, I know, like, obviously he won't be here all the time, but I do think if, like, Forrest on Junk holding this angle, like, I just feel like this is underused space by a lot of defending teams, at least at our elo. Like, everyone goes up here, like, Soldier is usually up here or whatever.
Well, I mean,
but, like, no one's ever holding this space. And then McCree, like, red team McCree will just go up there with High Noon.
Yeah, let me get up to this high ground. I'm pretty sure the high ground is just a direct upgrade, to be honest. I mean, yeah, the Junkrat can spam everywhere up here that he can from down there, but then he still has the advantage of being able to hide in this room. So I mean, I'm pretty sure this
I mean,
space is just a
For
direct
your
upgrade.
safety, please move behind
it's
the
less
barrier.
having junk here because the thing is like
Not so fast.
I feel like if we have junk and soldier here and no one like watching that space, like he doesn't have to physically be there all the time, but I think if we have like even a trap up there just to know if someone's coming through here, keep us
Trap
from
definitely
getting
makes
flanked.
sense.
Because
I
I've
mean,
definitely like on
yeah.
soldier just gone over there before. Like, you know, this happens all the time where McCree or soldier goes up there and they're just up here shooting for free and no one can do anything about it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
For your own safety,
As far as how to
get
contest it
behind
though,
the
if you're
barrier.
using soldier and junk, I think both of them could afford to be up here. Like, there's nothing wrong with, I guess, putting the Junkrat down here. It does make the soldier a little bit more susceptible to being dived because the Junkrat isn't up there immediately with him. But I mean, I would say you'd do better to have both of them on the high ground.
I just think also the split high ground option though sometimes is like really good for Mercy because what I personally find helpful when I'm playing Mercy is if the team is in kind of like a triangle in two really far points that you can ping pong back and forth, but like is beyond like Genji dash, for example, right? So triangle, like, you know, Winston dives you, you jump to one point, someone else dives you, you jump to the third point, and you can kind of just like cycle through your team while kind of keeping them topped off and always having somewhere to go. Whereas I think having only 2 points, sometimes it's like, all right, so you're getting overrun on the ground, you jump to high ground, Winston jumps after you. Great. You know what I mean? It's just like now you're pocketing soldier because if you don't, he's gonna die.
Okay, so I'm looking at the next picture, and I didn't realize that it was actually part of your strategy to disengage to these exact spots. Do you do that? Is the plan to do that every time?
That's like part of the question that like that's kind of part of what I'm thinking about. Like I think this is kind of like a good setup because like part of it too is like if they're trying to get on the point, right? So you have the soldier, you have the junk, and the junk is like a lot more mobile.
Oh,
so
and
he
I
can kind of
misunderstood what you
toss.
meant, by the way, with the junk being on the high ground. I thought you meant it was like put him on the low ground in front of the soldier. That's what I thought you were talking about. So no,
Oh,
I'm wrong. You're right. That would be just a fine spot to put the junk. I totally agree with you. That's my bad.
because then they also like if they're trying to fight on the point, like if they're fighting pushing into the Arisa, they've got to deal with soldier on the one side and then Junkrat behind them. So it's like little crossfire situation, and then Mercy can kind of freely go between the 3 points to damage boost or support whoever needs to be supported, and then Anna hangs out with Soldier for Biotic Field. Like, I just feel like Anna should just be with Soldier at all times.
Yeah, that makes sense. That way she can make
like,
use of the heal.
like, make use of the heal, and then it's like easy nano, easy nano visor.
So
There.
I think these are these both look like okay hold spots. I just question when you would want to switch from the first one to the second one.
Yeah, because it takes so much time to get back up here.
Like you say, once choke is lost, but how do you define that? Because
Yeah.
ideally, I think here. Can you set up another custom so I can?
Yeah.
I think ideally you would want to engage into them as they're going through the choke point because that's when they're the most vulnerable because they have to clump up to go through there. And remember what I keep telling you, even on defense, you still want to initiate the fight. You want to decide the when and where. It gives you an advantage.
Right.
So it depends what you mean by once choke is lost.
Like, yeah. I mean, like you said, that's definitely part of the question too.
Traveling to Eichenwald.
Like, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure when you would ever choose the second one over the first hold spot, unless I'm just not thinking of something. Because, I mean...
that's true. Because, like, even if we win the fight, like, we want to reset up basically at the first choke,
Yeah,
right?
like, this just seems more effective, because it's more space for you to work with and less space for the enemy to work with. Where if you hold all the way back here on the point, that gives them access to both of these routes to get to the point. Whereas right here, you've got them in the choke point. This is where you want them.
So then, I guess maybe then point B would be like if we get like where we disengage to if we lose someone and they start pushing in. Like I don't know.
I guess it could sort of be like as a reminder of it, I mean, like a point brawl is going to happen eventually if they break through your defense, and then it'll be about trickling back in unless they got a team wipe. So I mean, I guess those could be the spots you want to try to get back to, but it's not really a hold spot so much as this is kind of the optimal places for us to be to brawl it out on the point.
Yeah. So I guess maybe what happens is like maybe the point B is less once choke is lost, but more like so the fight is already on the point. They're consistently trickling back in, trying to take it or whatever. Maybe we're down 1 or 2 people or whatever, but like we get like a moment, you know, of whatever. Like we get a moment's break, and like maybe like Anna and Soldier, when they have a minute, you know, head up here to try to set up just to have like positional advantage. While the tanks deal with stragglers or whatever. And
I guess
then,
the rule could be if any of you
get
get picked, then disengage to these locations.
Yeah.
Because there's more natural sight lines to play around here.
Yeah. I think once someone gets picked, then it's kind of like an obvious go for them to push in.
Yeah,
so I think
definitely.
if we can start scooting back and setting up here, we'll be in a better position to deal with them once they're on the point versus like just kind of you know, here.
So yeah, when we're done here, I'm gonna clip what I said earlier about tickling the high ground, and I'll send that to all of the tank players. Because I think that would be useful. But I think as far as the hold spots, that covers all of that.
Hello there.
And then, yeah, I think point B, like, I still have to draw it out. But mostly it's going to be try to hold a bridge, and it's just who's where on the bridge. Like in the castle on top. Point C is, there's not a ton of options.
So what is your general game plan for point B? For Strats phase?
On defense or offense?
On defense and offense. Like, what is your general game plan for that?
I think this is the problem. Like, we kind of don't have one because, okay, so we take point A.
I'm
blah,
just
blah,
going
blah.
over stuff with Lead, actually. We started doing that today where I'm like, you know what? It was really effective when we developed a standard strategy that we could practice on Horizon. We should do that more. And so we went through a bunch of maps and we started making strats for them.
Okay, so I feel like here's where we typically run into trouble on point B, right? So the easiest point, I think, for defense to hold, for like a very aggressive defense to hold, is actually right here, right?
Okay.
Like this choke right here.
Yeah.
Because if they've set up optimally for them over here, so maybe they've got like a Farah pharmacy in the sky shooting from over here. Maybe they've got McCree up here, right? Or Junkrat inside the castle, whatever. And then the tanks kind of just dive in, whatever, and the supports hang out here in relative safety, I guess.
So here's
Or
the
up
first thing.
there.
I do not personally believe it's possible to get through this Streets phase without Winston Diva as your tank lineup. Like, I mean, it's possible
I agree.
technically, but it's just like it's one of those Streets phase that there's so much verticality. It's like
More
you
difficult
really
than
need to be able to contest it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think you'll find that if you are always going Winston Diva, like maybe even just full straight on hard diving people on Streets phase, a lot of those problems will not go away, but get a lot easier to deal with.
I agree. So I think basically point B, as soon as we cap it, everyone immediately swaps to... Because like on attack, we usually run Zen anyway, so it's pretty much just if we decide to run like a Rhine instead. But I think we typically start with dive on attack regardless, so it's not as like, it's mostly like you might switch off Winston if they're running like a Bastion or something, which is entirely possible on defense here, or for the point A defense.
Yeah. But so like Yeah, you know, let me go back to Winston again.
I'm trying to think like I might switch to just so I can also dive up and down.
And also, Winston isn't the only one that can tickle high ground, by the way. It's even more effective if you get both dive tanks to do it. Because it's all about making it more expensive for the enemy to hold the space they want to hold. And like, if you can commit a diva to it as well, then they have to commit that many more resources to safely hold that high ground.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what we've had trouble with here. I want to say, honestly, sometimes, Hog.
Oh, okay.
Surprisingly effective, because it's like flank Hog, like hogs that really know the map well and flank are just, like coming out of like the direction that you're not expecting, right? Because there's actually so many places that they can come from.
At my elo, flank hogs are not common, but because of that, at one point recently, I was playing some comp and there was this flank hog on the enemy team, and every time we turned around, he was behind us, like 180 degrees, full on behind us, and he would hook a support and usually kill them, and we were just like pulling our hair out. We eventually ended up winning. By finally applying the resources to punish him for that, but like it caught us so off guard because we didn't know how to deal with it because it's not a common thing.
Yeah, because no one does that. Well, no, that's the thing. So we've had hogs just like hang out here and just literally just hold all of the space by himself because you try to challenge him and like it's like close range and then also other thing is Junkrat. Maybe less so inside the castle, but definitely up here.
Well, that's
like literally
for that you can
sitting up here.
For that you can kind of tickle the high ground a little bit if you get your Diva Winston up on him. Actually, at this point, you may even be able to just full on dive him unless he jumps off the high ground. In which case, if he jumps off the high ground, that's a definite win because you can fall down. You don't even have to commit any movement abilities to follow him.
I think what typically happens. So it's just like Junkrat might be up here, McCree's. Like Farah's like over there in the sky, like flying around up here, right, in this direction. And then you've got like Mercy's with her flying up to Junkrat. Like you've got their tanks
I do not want to
diving off and on the high ground again. And then I just feel like really, really aggressive defenses here, like we just tend to have trouble with.
Well, I would say go Winston Diva. Your DPS can switch if they don't have ult. I mean, the Winston Diva is the important bit because you just want to make sure the enemy isn't holding this high ground for free. Full dive is going to be that much more effective, but if you've got ult, that's a good advantage too. If they are smart, they will all try to hold this high ground, which usually that means you can sort of tickle them a little bit, drop down, get some free cart push. It's more like so another phrase I'll commonly use is take what the enemy team gives you. Like if they're holding all the way up here, for instance, then who knows? Maybe they'll let you push the cart all the way up to this corner before they have to engage onto you, right?
Right.
Probably not, but they might. Oh, hold on, I'm getting a bit of a
ping
spike.
I think what kind of happens though is like so if Junk's just like chilling up. Like maybe he gets some lucky picks, then they dive whoever's left or whatever. That's like the main issue with Junk is like, especially if you're running. The doorway.
Help. Ping.
Oh no.
My ping just jumped up to like 600. Looks like it's falling back down now. Oh geez, that was bad. That was a bad ping spike. I couldn't hear anything you were saying. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. I was just saying that I think what typically happens though when they're running in Junkrat, because like Junkrat is kind of disgusting on this point, especially
Junkrat's disgusting on every point. Just say it.
Every map on every Junkrat is the Mercy of DPS right now.
Yep.
let's
For sure.
be real honest. So, because what typically ends up happening is like, so we're still pushing the cart through the door, right? There's the junk just spamming his little heart out. He doesn't even have to like look at the freaking to kill you. So he's just spamming, and then someone gets picked like right at this door, and then they all dive in, etc., etc. And then and then I feel like we just get stuck here for like a super long time before we can push. And then by the time that we're even able to get like here, we like maybe only have 30 seconds left.
So
at the end.
if that's what's happening, then all of you should be waiting back where it's safe until the tanks give the go to move forward.
Okay.
Like literally just hang
the
out
shield.
behind the corners, out of line of sight, and then when the tanks move to tickle the high ground or even just straight up dive it, they say, okay, now you can push. The DPS move in, they got on the cart, you set up whatever it is you want to set up, you take some cart push. If the tanks have to back off, the tanks have to back off.
Okay.
But I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like we do also, like people do also get picked a lot when they're poking, like when we're trying to, like waiting for regroups and stuff. And then that like does draw things out sometimes.
I got you something.
Oh, I thought it would fall. Oh well. But yeah, so I think it goes back again to playing the sightlines, honestly. At least for the DPS and supports.
Yeah, that makes sense. Think about like attack, like I don't know, full attack. At this point feels like it's snowball and roll them, or it's just like the biggest uphill battle.
Well, once you get around this corner, if the enemy is smart, they'll move up to this bridge here. Most of the time, they end up just holding here in front of the cart, which means the high ground is totally uncontested. You can take it and then dive from there. Like,
And then I think
once you have the
also,
high ground,
like-
you can dive all the way back here, and this isn't splitting your team up too much. Like, that's a lot of free space.
It's like once the cart like gets here, for example, right? So then they circle back around and take that high ground, and then now we're sandwiched between like
that is
Lyerhis
something that
and
happens a lot
Lyerhis
actually.
here.
Once the cart gets around to like this bridge, you actually you usually need to commit at least one tank over to this angle, and you can push as far up as like here to sort of discourage them from even coming out. But like you want to sort of block off this area so that the enemy team can't use that high ground and get behind you. I cannot tell you how many competitive games I've lost because a McCree got back here and dead-eyed. It's so demoralizing.
It's like every freaking game. It's always the McCree, and he's always over here.
It's
and I
always the
know it.
McCree. It's occasionally a soldier with attack visor. It's always a hit scan, is what it is. That's what it is.
There even is like not as bad because it takes a little more time. Like you kind of have a little more room to go hide or
Occasionally it's a
whatever.
Junkrat with a rip tire, but that's more rare.
Yeah, well, as we know, Junkrats prefer to rip tire within the safety of spawn, and so they just take the
Yes.
tire out whichever way they please and wall ride that shit on top of your head. That's what happens.
But yeah, so
Not
that
gonna lie.
I know a lot of my advice is very tank centric, but that's what you get for having a tank main as a coach.
But I think that's what's helpful though, because I think the main tank play is where we're the least experienced within the group.
I mean, it's one of the reasons I like tank plays so much, is because you have such an impact on the game. So, like, don't get me wrong, every role can always do better, just like with the tank. But usually my solutions to issues involve the tanks doing stuff, because the tanks can do so much. A good
Actually,
tank can just control everything. It's so cool.
It's literally the reason like I like playing D.Va. It's just because at certain times I can just get aggressive and frag people, but like my other big job is like protecting people and just taking space.
It's a blast.
It's literally the job where you're pretty much doing the most.
Got you
It
something.
What might be helpful
It's
And
not
we
as like
can-
it's not as like APM oriented, so a lot of shooter players don't get as into the tank play. But like, as
so
far as
good.
playing impact, tank is so much fun.
It's so good. Also, anyway, so real quick, be helpful for us too. If you ever have time, like maybe we just have both Fours and Forest like group with you, and Worry.
Sure.
But
to
I
do
think
what?
we should definitely have all the main tank players like play with you, so you can give
I do not
Give some
want a
tips.
banana.
give some tips and also
We had like me and Freddie played with him once with
Yeah.
Mango.
Oh yeah, with in comp. But I wasn't playing very well that day, and then it ended with me accidentally force quitting Overwatch, and I'm like, well, this is embarrassing. Hopefully
This is
these
a good
people
point
still
to
have
stop.
respect for me.
Do you just like start spamming the Winston?
But yeah.
This is super sick because I can literally cook and then stand back from the stove and watch what's happening.
Cool. Whose stream are you watching? Lyerhis or mine?
Mecha activated.
Wait, holy shit, that was actually straight up muscle memory. When you threw that self-destruct, I actually straight up jumped on it and put a bubble, and I wasn't doing it to like be funny or anything. That was straight up muscle memory. That's cool.
That is cool. There you go.
When I like go into your script streams and then I watch you play Mercy, I'm like, oh, because I just want to watch you play Winston.
I'll probably end up playing some comp tonight if you want to watch that.
Yeah.
No, come. Also, maybe come play with us a bit too, because I'll Mercy for you, and then you won't have to Mercy.
Hi there.
But so for last point, I actually would recommend switching off the Winston to either a Rhine or a Orisa. And that I think either of those can work.
There's so much spam.
Yeah.
There's always a Junkrat here. It's so annoying.
Orisa is considered the better main tank, so she would probably technically be better if you're looking to min-max. You want to go for the Orisa Hog. But as a Reinhardt player, I've made Reinhardt work on last point numerous times.
I think you definitely can. The nice thing with Orisa is obviously your barrier is up more, and
Yeah.
also you have range to force them back.
And then
Like-
the Halt Hook combo.
Because you like,
look at this.
They're spamming.
Remember
you
the
can
days
also
that
spam.
hiding back here was actually safe? No longer with Halt Hook, my friend. No longer.
We're like over here, dude.
Yeah, like it's really
this
cool.
little corner here. Hide in this room anymore, can you? 'Cause
Well,
you can
this
get
room is
halted
still
in
sort of
the-
effective because no one thinks to look there.
Hi there.
I do.
But like back here behind this little high ground, this used to be like you could reliably stick a DPS there and he would be able to stay here for as long as he wanted. The enemy could get like in front of him and they wouldn't notice him.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore.
Guess you can kind of hide back here,
Yeah.
back here, and then just wait until they pass and flank out from here. Like this would actually be a great McCree hiding spot if they don't know that you're here. Just wait until they roll past high noon from here.
Embarrassing.
Oh yeah, I've done that. It's fun. It's always the McCree.
It's always the McCree. I'm
Flank
telling
noon.
you, dude.
Do not want a banana.
You know what's sad is like
He's always like the easiest like dive target in terms of like DPSs, yet he's always the one flanking and getting around when you least expect it.
because you always like you dive him, he dies, and then you forget about him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's just like moseying back here in the back, combat rolling his way into your backline.
But
And he also has, I don't know, it's like he has loud footsteps, but they're not loud enough to be like heard over like
yeah.
bullets and shit.
I question why Roadhog's footsteps are not louder. Roadhog's footsteps should be louder.
Oh my god, old Roadhog when you'd actually like flank with him and then he just like one shot literally anything.
That was a
behind
topic
you, and
of
you're like,
discussion
oh.
just a few minutes ago, is flank hogs. And how they're rare, but still a thing, and they're almost more dangerous because now people don't remember how to deal with them. Like, in one of my games the other day, like in my elo, flank hogs are almost non-existent. You never see road hogs that like leave the death ball. But like in my game the other day, there was this Roadhog that kept flanking, and like every single push, we'd turn around and he would be behind us. And I mean like all the way behind us, like 180 degrees in our back line. And we're just like, first off, how did this happen? Second, what the fuck do we do? Because our Zen's already dead.
Like, where do you get that mobility? Plus, oh my god.
We did eventually win because we started actually committing the peel for it. We were like, okay, we know the Hog's going to be behind us any second now. Let's save our mobility. As soon as the supports call him, we turn around, we kill the Hog, then we can go back to what we were doing.
I think that's the thing with flank Hog is they just don't fucking die anymore. Like you can't.
More aggressive for hook
so
targets,
hard
I'll say.
to deal with them.
But
unless you have nade, they can live for so long.
One of the
so
things
long.
you should definitely be calling out take a breather. Actually, Hog is surprisingly easy to dive when he doesn't have his take a breather up. It's when he still has it that you want to be scared of him.
Yeah.
Because he can wait to really get the full damage reduction value out of it. So if you can sort of deal a bunch of chip damage out of him and onto him and scare him into taking a breather, then you can call to dive him, and he's surprisingly squishy.
Oh my god, Hog is like.
He doesn't have any armor or anything, so once you get to take a breather out of him, he just melts.
What you don't want is to commit everything to him and then have him use take a breather while everything is being committed to him. Because then that's like everybody's full clip has just been sunk in at half damage and he's getting pocketed and you just wasted everything. But if you can scare the take a breather out of him first, then you can actually, it's not too hard. But I think that's pretty much everything for Eichenwald as far as the basics go.
Hey, you know what?
Eichenwald is very fun for me because I use Orisa on first point, Winston on second point, and Reinhardt on last point.
Nice.
It's one of the maps. It's one of those maps that I get to use all three tanks, and it's a lot of fun. Ilios is another one. I get to use all three tanks.
There's a lot of Evanog, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
On defense and offense.
It's something I called out too, like a little bit ago, but now we can reiterate, like, especially like watching like Overwatch League recently, and I'm amazed at the amount of times like even the winning team, when they're on a push and they have all this momentum, where one player or like two players will stop and switch heroes for like a more appropriate time.
Yeah. They're really good about it. I mean, they practice that shit. Like, they drill it. They're like, okay, and now change heroes now.
Yep. It's like, all right, we got this point, we're going to change it now. And then we're just going to death ball into the second point with a completely different lineup than we took the first one with.
It's really cool that they can do that without even losing momentum. I wish I was that dexterous. I even forget to change to Winston to get to point faster for stall when I'm playing Orisa. Like, I'll be walking out of the point and I'll be like, you know what, maybe I should be Winston. And I gotta take the extra second to switch.
It's kind of like the curse of D.Va, because it's like I'm so used to just playing D.Va in like literally every situation, and then like we can play like Lijiang Tower or like a certain point where like D.Va's not the answer, and I'm like, wait, what do I do now? As I get melted by Azaria.
But are there any other maps you wanted to go over?
I mean, I think going over like specific stuff, I think ideally we'd want to go over like all the maps, but what else we have?
I mean, are there any other maps that have been giving you a lot of trouble?
I don't know if it's maps so much as just like the same. It's like the same situation as what we run into on Eichenwald, right? So it's like Blizzworld obviously is a problem right now because it's so new.
So is it? I'm trying to think of a pattern. Is it that you have a hard time dealing with
like counter dive?
With aggressive holds,
we have a hard time with the initial dive and then dealing with the counter dive.
Right. Okay. So the best way to deal with counter dive is to feign a dive and see how they react. It's a bit complicated.
Like, what do you mean?
Break that down into specific, like.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of how I would do it myself exactly.
Would it be like, like a Winston will like use a mobility ability but not like go all the way and just kind of see how they respond, or like the Winston goes in and then we just dedicate to getting him out?
So I'm
Oh,
learning.
great.
So just to be clear here, one of the reasons I like coaching is because I learn too. Like as I'll be talking about stuff, I have new realizations, and so then I'll share that with you, and that ends up being accurate. And so I start implementing that in my own game. Like I've gone up in rank since I started coaching you guys, all the way back in Scrub Cup, because of that.
So I guess like
So this
maybe
is
okay. Let's pretend you're attacking and I'm defending. Like, what do you mean by feigning a dive?
So let's
right?
say
So
you're
let's say we're
holding
here.
right here, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm holding right here.
without
You're over
using
there.
any mobility, I would start to make my way up here, and I would drop
Okay.
off this high ground and commit to attacking one of the supports. If they then counter dive, I still have my jump pack to get out.
Okay, so literally. Just
Whereas if
walking
you're
in
actually
instead of-
diving, you want to get here and like commit the jump pack, go for the burst damage, really try to dive in on the kill.
right?
So it's sort of like fake committing to a fight when really it's just really aggressive poke.
Right.
I think that's the
Okay.
best way I could put it.
Makes sense. So
And
it's
this is
like
like
basically
it's a concept
seeing
that
if
I've known
you can
has
walk.
existed, but I've never actually like used it in a game, feigning a dive, because counter diving doesn't happen too much at an organized level in ladder.
Hello.
Also, did you know that Winston takeoff also does damage? I did not.
I
know
did.
That
I don't know the number, but I did know it deals damage.
Yeah, I am down to 581 because you're jumping next to me. Yeah, it does knockback.
Yeah, the
Hey.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that was so landing definitely does damage.
Landing, I've told you guys the punch animation cancel tip for Winston, right?
So it's like
Yeah, I knew about that beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you jump and then punch at the very end, your
Right.
landing will animation cancel the punch, so you can primary fire just as fast.
Hello.
Yeah.
There's a mega back here. Where'd it
Saves
go?
reload
It's like
time.
between that and then the bunny hop after you jump pack.
Mm-hmm.
Like Winston has like all those little things. It's like it's kind of interesting, and I wish I spent more time on him because I kind
Yeah.
of want to learn that stuff.
The bunny hop is, oh my god, dude! The bunny hop I think is what made my Winston play go from low diamond to high diamond level. Like when I learned I could bunny hop, that made me so much more mobile. Like that's the difference from being able to tickle the high ground and getting all the way to the back where I am now. It's a massive thing. And like you can, if you get good at it too, you can like bunny hop around corners. Oops, I messed that up. But you can like bunny hop and then change your momentum midair. So it's like you can bunny hop around this corner. You see where I am? This is in one leap.
It's like even easier now with the movement changes, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
You can like strafe in midair now on Winston.
Yeah. I mean, you could before. It was just unintuitive. That's what the changes were. Is now you
Yeah.
can just straight up strafe by pressing the movement keys, where before you had to do this weird like little dance with your fingers, where you had to like move forward and also press A and hold space or some crap like that.
Yeah, it was something really weird.
Hello there.
Because I remember I would try to do that, and I would be like, "Wait, why can't I like change my momentum? What's
Yeah.
going on?"
But so that bunny hop, oh my god, dude, it's so helpful.
And then like this is one like I'm definitely not gonna get until I like actually commit time to Winston. But like 180 while you jump pack. You
Yeah,
can avoid getting
I'm still
headshot.
practicing
Yeah.
that. What you should start with if you want to practice that is just practice turning your back to enemies whenever you're facing them and not shooting. So like, so Lyerhis, come back
I'm really
to where
good
you're
at
holding.
I'm really good at that
Where
with
you're
like
holding.
Roadhog. Like Roadhog, if I'm like sitting there like soaking up damage, I'll like literally turn around and
Yeah.
look down.
So like, if you guys are holding here and I was gonna do that feign a dive thing, I'll literally be looking away while I do it, and then I'll drop and start doing my thing on the support. And so that's how I started to train that muscle memory, and I'm still working on that. Is like I just want to always not be showing my head hitbox when I can help it. Yeah. Same goes for Diva, but Winston's the biggest offender.
This.
Oh,
Very rough.
I didn't make it.
That time it wasn't muscle memory. That time it was like, oh hey, I'm gonna do it.
You nearly killed him.
I know. I was trying to get it through the window.
I could have
guess
pressed.
to
I
be-
could have also pressed Q to survive it. So I mean,
Would you survive it with Q though?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Do something.
Diva Bomb's like
Diva Bomb, I
does
think is
1,000 damage.
I think
is it 1,000? I thought it was
It's a
way less.
1,000. No. It is 1,000
I think
damage.
it's 1,000, but it has damage fall off, and that's how I usually do it. Is like I'll jump and then I'll press Q.
Yeah.
So Oof, again.
on
It
the
makes an hour
very
then.
outer edges.
Yeah.
Game lasted too long, shutting down.
I know.
But so,
Very blunt blizzard.
I know, right?
So I think that covers all of the basics if we want to.
Okay.
Unless you have another map you want to go over, and I could show you tips on that.
I don't think specific map stuff would be helpful at this moment because I think, like I said, it's more of the general stuff that we tend to run into on these types of maps where it's like point stuff like that we seem to have
It's more like
trouble
we
deciding how
don't
to
really
do.
have, outside of like us being really aggressive with dive, we don't have like basic tools we could just rely on, and then as soon as something doesn't go our way, everything just kind of like falls apart and we have no
Like-
idea like
Sounds
how
like
to-
Boston
Yeah.
Uprising. I mean,
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
say
kind of it.
anything.
It's just like everyone just kind of freaks out, and then we have a really difficult time recovering
and
afterwards.
then, well, I addressed the emotional aspect of it, but
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it's like down to the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
So my tips for that are, you don't always have to dive a support. Obviously, that is the best case scenario. If you can afford to dive a support and do that right, go for it. But you don't have to. Like, oh, that was the other thing I wanted to do. I wanted to show you guys how to make an opening if there isn't one using crowd control. Which is, it
Okay.
sounds super complicated, but it's actually not. I do it as
You want me
Winston
to-
all the time. Yeah, put up another, go like,
Team number 3.
go Temple of Anubis.
Go on.
Temple of Anubis is a good example.
Okay.
There's an extreme example that I
myself.
can show you on Temple of Anubis.
Now entering the Temple of Anubis.
So go like Winston or something.
Okay. Do I even want to know?
Go Winston or something. Go Sombra.
So come up here, come up
no,
here.
no, no. Delayed.
So
I was on some before he said that.
yeah. So if say you're a tank, right, and you're holding this high ground for your team, this is where you've set up, this is what you're doing, this is your standard point A defense, right? And and the attacking team wants to run dive. So they come out here,
Yeah.
they see you're on the high ground, which first off, if the enemy's holding the high ground up there, don't come up here. This is really bad. You should push
Yeah.
mid and try to get underneath them, like down to here. Just,
Yeah.
just
Like
little
right
side
underneath
tip,
them.
get under
Like
here
right
where they
here.
can't shoot you. But so
Yeah.
say you're
Yep.
holding up there, right? You come here and you're looking to dive up onto the high ground and initiate a dive because they're just
Right.
not falling, they're not playing into what you want. So head back up. Now stand right on the edge like a Reinhardt would, holding his shield down.
Oh, shit.
Right. And now you're off the high ground.
Hello.
So with words accompanying it, you can use any form of CC to get sort of in between a team
This will protect
and
us.
sort of brute force your way into an opening for a dive. That would mostly be the Winston's job with his jump CC, and then any accompanying CC can just make it even more effective. So
So I guess
I only wanted Anubis for that extreme example of Reinhardt's will
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
on the
yeah.
edge here, and you can jump up and literally just straight up knock them off the edge for free, and it's super
usually,
effective.
'cause I want to say usually it's less Ryan, it's more Orisa, right? And I feel like Orisa is a lot harder to.
Orisa's really good for
Because-
hunkering down in a spot.
Yeah, and also because she has that movement reduction while she's shooting like Diva does, so it's actually really hard to like
Yes.
move her.
However, it still actually works. Like I said, this was just a really extreme example that I wanted to show you because in this specific example, it's very clear to see how the CC has made an opening and created a dive target for you. In most cases, it will not be that clear, but it only needs to be like a foot of movement to be an opening. You can be 1 foot out of position, but you're still out of position,
Right.
So like if you if you want to go back and change to like, you don't have to change to Reinhardt actually. If you just like drop down onto here, say this is like King's Row Streets phase, you're looking to initiate a dive into the enemy team. You jump right behind them, CC the tank a little bit too far forward. Now you melt the tank, and if they move forward to the tank, see if you can catch anyone out while they're spread out moving. Stuff like that.
But yeah, like that's what I was saying earlier too. Like we have a lot of success when it's like we force a tank out of position, or we punish the main tank out of position,
honestly,
and then we roll through everything else.
That's also how we get destroyed a lot of the time.
But yeah, so if there is no opening, you can sort of brute force your way into one, and that will work sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's an option. Again, it doesn't have to be a massive opening. That's part of what Winston's bubble is for too, is you can isolate somebody. You can make it so that people outside the bubble all of a sudden can't shoot in to help kill the Winston that's on their dive buddy, on their buddy being dove. Excuse me. And if they've got an Ana, that's a million times better. If you place your shield around a tank, then all of a sudden the Ana can't heal that tank. It's really beautiful.
I can't tell you how annoying it is when my Rhine pushes an Orisa, but like no one's shooting the shield, so he dies because I just can't heal him because he's standing behind her shield.
Yeah, I know that feeling from the tank's point of view. I definitely
happens so much. So
which is why and that's why I call like a lot of shield break when it happens. But
shield break's very important.
So now that we're on this map, right? So let's say they're doing that very, very standard at this point, like so let's say it's like Widow, Junkrat, Orisa up here. Here, right? And they've got like massive sightline, they've got the range for Widow or Soldier or whoever, they've got Junkrat spamming all over the place. Like how without dying?
How do you what?
What I've seen a lot of teams do, like they're gonna pick like really high mobility heroes, and they're gonna go to the left, and they can go up and back behind that little like hole way high.
Go up here.
Yeah, let me see, because you're on the stream
We both
delay.
primal raged.
I know. Because I suck.
Well, I did it too, so.
No, I mean, from the other side. No, they're gonna go left from the attacker's point of view. They're gonna go left into that room.
Oh, into this room?
From the choke.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like no sightline here.
So here's the thing: you can do that, but you really, really shouldn't. This is like if they've got a Junkrat or something, then you've basically just opted to put yourself in a really tiny little choke point that's really easily spammable. Like you shouldn't, if they're on this high ground here, you shouldn't push through the left. It's like it can work, but it's not optimal.
I mean, that's how like I've seen some people go about it, where they go in that room and then
I've seen some pros try to do that, and if you look and if you actually go back and rewatch those VODs, pros that do that on attack when the enemy is holding the back high ground, they tend to lose more often. They tend to get absolutely destroyed on those pushes.
Widow actually has great sidelines back here too, and it's real because like you have to come through these windows, so it's actually kind of an easy headshot, I think, if you're a really good Widow.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess we should just go right on that occasion.
I feel like going right tends to be safer in general.
Well, I mean,
because like you have the high ground,
the strategy my team uses is that we go mid, and when we get to this point under the bridge, we commit our movement abilities, and we end up over here where they can't really easily hit us, and we can sort of tickle the point and force them to drop down off the high ground. And the key here is that you do not use your movement abilities until you get here, so you're spending as little time in their line of sight as possible.
So I guess, hang on, let's go back.
So you go to like this bridge, and then
they were coming through here. All right, let's say I'm on defense. All right, this is an Orisa shield. I'm a Junkrat. I'm spamming whatever. In mid safely.
So if they're holding right, oops, sorry, I messed my own jump up. Hold on. I don't remember how to do this. No, that was just me being a dumb. Here we go. If they're holding here, you actually don't want to do that, because you're right. This is a horrible idea. If they're holding here, you actually do want to push in through here, as far as I can tell.
Even with a junk? I feel like
I
this
think
tends to-
if
this
they're
ends up being
holding
like a
here, your
step
two
hole.
options are to dive straight onto them or push in through the side. If they're holding
Yeah.
back here, that's when you want to go around through mid and
Go
commit
to
your
mid.
movement
Okay, right,
abilities
right.
to get here. Because you're right, if they're holding here, that means you are directly underneath them the whole time. And then being over here doesn't even give you that big of an advantage if that's what they're holding. Because you still have to peek out and you're still in their line of sight to touch the point. So you shouldn't do that if they're holding right here.
I think the only exception is if there's like 1 minute on the clock and then like the entire team just goes straight to point.
Well, I mean, with 1 minute left, you still want to be tactical about it. You don't want to panic. Like, there's your last push, and then there's throw bodies onto point and hope for the best mode.
Right.
They're different.
Hi there.
Your last push does
So
not
actually-
necessarily have to be everybody panic, everybody press Q. You can still be tactful about it.
Excuse me for.
I guess so. All right. Starting from here, right? If we're attacking, where would you place your shields as Winston? So like if let's
they're
say
holding
doing
here on the high
a
ground-
classic platform, yeah. If they're doing a classic platform, where would you? Where are
You
we
can
going? and where
afford
would
to
you-
place your bubble here
This will
if you
protect
must. It's way more efficient to save it and take what they'll give you
Okay.
and then use it to initiate onto
Make
the back line
sense.
here. This is way more efficient, but if you absolutely need it to get through here without getting picked, it's okay. Like, you can hang out in
Okay.
this little room and wait for the bubble to come back off of cooldown and then commit. You do
Okay.
not,
Hello there.
I mean, it's possible, but whenever possible, you do not want to initiate without your bubble as Winston. So,
Hi there.
like, in my comp matches, I'll even say, okay, like, everyone will be saying, Winston, go in, and I'm like, hold on, my bubble has 3 seconds on cooldown. Usually, I'll use my bubble cooldown as my countdown for when I'm going in if my bubble's off cooldown.
Hey.
So,
That makes sense.
that's a good rule of thumb, actually. If your bubble's on cooldown, count down your cooldown to your bubble, and when it's up, that's when you start the dive.
Okay, that makes sense.
I got you some. Hi there. Barrier activated. No.
This
I
little-
do not want a banana.
For Anna, by the way, is
Yeah, this is a cheeky little spot for Anna.
this platform is so like it's so stupid and so good. Holy shit! Unless they have a widow and then you hide back here, but
You just have to be really careful. Like, you gotta really play the sight lines with these palm trees and up here, and you have to be ready to disengage up here and get
Yep.
help from your dive tanks if they commit to diving you. Because, like,
yeah,
if you're holding here on this high ground and they decide to
Yeah.
push mid for whatever reason and they see you up there, you're alone. That's a dive target. You know, this is a really isolatable person. So you have to run up here and call for the help of your dive tanks.
yeah. Unless you can sleep the tank and then run away.
Yeah. Even if you
Okay,
sleep the
you
tank,
just
that should be
sleep,
where
like-
you run to.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm pretty sure you can use that ledge by the palm trees to get to that back area too.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. I think this one.
Yep.
I was
No,
saying
no,
that this is
So
not
another?
On the outside of that little stairs.
is this one.
It's by the palm tree where you were standing.
Oh,
It's
is
like
this?
right at the top. Yep.
Yeah,
that
this
there.
thing, this thing.
Anna can
Oh, you're
jump
right.
on that and actually avoid using the doorway if someone's holding it.
Oh, I've never actually
Oh.
noticed
Okay,
that.
Yeah.
I've never noticed that. That's cool. I'm gonna
Yeah,
use
I do
instead.
that
That is
all
cool.
the time to kind of kite people around that area, and
That's
just that
cool.
way I don't
How
have
do
to
you
jump
how do you
down.
get up there?
I don't think you
from
can
the-
from the bottom. I think it has to be
Yeah,
from the
you
top.
can't from the
So you
bottom.
go,
Yeah,
so
it
you
has to
go
be
from the
top.
top and just jump back around this way.
Yeah.
Play Ring Around the Rosie.
I've never noticed that before.
If you've got a Winston
Yeah.
or Diva after, you just play Ring Around the Rosie and go around over and over.
Yeah, I always do that as Anna.
pretty much. It's like so effective too.
Yeah, I can see someone winning a footsie battle off of this.
Just ring around the rosy until sleep comes up, and then you ring around the rosy some more.
Hi, by the way.
Oh, welcome back. Oh, do you want in? You're on, right?
Yeah, I just got home.
I don't know how much more we're actually discussing right now, though.
Well, I don't know.
What
Is
comp
there-
are we planning to run on this map? I always want to have like a strategy offense-wise and
Got you something.
Attack, probably dive. I feel like our dive
with a
strat is
Pharaoh,
typically
or-
all attack. Well, I think this is the one where we do triple DPS, right? Because Cater goes Widow. Goes
Yeah.
healing. On Mercy, we have dive tanks, and then we have Mango on Genji. It depends on what they have.
Yeah, should we run the strat where we do a scout and then switch to like a different comp? Should we do that?
I mean, I think we kind of already do that, where like Mango will come in on Tracer or whatever, see what they have.
Yeah.
If they have a Widow,
Oh,
he goes
if
Genji.
on attack here,
Oh,
if
okay.
you have a diva here, hold on, let me show you.
Yeah.
This is what the pros have been doing. I didn't think to do this
Uh-huh.
until I saw the pros do it. But if you have a diva,
A lot of great diva scouting.
if you have a diva on first point attack, you can just fly up here and you can get up above this arch and you can see which high ground they're on for
Yeah.
free. So that's
Oh,
a
nice.
useful little tip. I never thought about that until I saw it in Overwatch League, but it's cool.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Diva scouting, which I'm
This
like,
game
I
is
think,
so
I feel
fun.
like- I feel like we should do more of that, where like we assess where they are before we go in. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I feel like we don't do that very much right now, and so we're kind of like we're just gonna dive. We get here, we see there are. We're like, all right, we're going left side, and then they have like a Junkrat and a Rissa just spamming in, and it's like okay. Yesterday, like I don't know, I regret because I called this out when we were in the spawn room, and I was just kind of like, okay, we'll run Zen, and then we just kept getting picked, and I think we really needed a Lucio to boost us through the chokes because they had a Junkrat. Just
Well, which
sitting
way
there.
you were which way were you pushing?
I think we started right, and then we tried left, but like every single time someone would get picked. Like we were running.
Well, so here's something interesting. This is something I learned recently myself, and I had a little trouble with the concept at first, which is a Junkrat main told me that a good way to counter Junkrat is to split up the team so that
Yeah.
he can't just spam into all of them at once, and he has to sort of pick a side, and then with a less densely populated area, it's less likely he'll get a frag.
Yeah.
And so, keeping that in mind, the strategy my team currently has for attack is we will keep the tanks here in the choke point, like just literally waiting right here, and we'll send our DPS over through the left, and then when given the go, both of those groups will use their mobility to get onto the dive here in the middle high ground.
Okay.
Hi.
Because 2 DPS alone should be able to more or less avoid the Junkrat spam, whereas of course if you've got all 6 people somewhere, they're going to have a harder
Right,
time
someone's gonna be
getting
killed.
nobody hit.
I think so too, but it was also part of it was like I think we were running like triple tank with a Risa, and I just like I don't know.
I don't
just
know
feel
about
like
triple
Lucio-
tank on this point.
I
on
should have just.
attack.
I should have just. Yeah, I should have just gone Lucio.
It's like it's one of those things that it's like you should try it because it might work, but also if
Yeah.
it doesn't, you should definitely swap off. I don't know about triple tank here.
Well, I think the thing that we were thinking they might have was like a Widow, because Widow's so popular on this point, and I feel like multi-tank is typically pretty effective against that, just because you can't. You have less targets that you can one-shot, right? And you have more
Yeah.
like they can body block.
Yeah.
But I think like not having Lucio to move us quickly through spam really hurt.
Yeah.
And then by the time I switched, it was too late.
Well, I think you would have done well to initiate, to switch to dive 1 and then initiate directly onto the high ground if that's the problem you're having, because that minimizes the amount of time that you're walking in front of the Junkrat. Like, if you're really having a problem with that, you don't
Yeah.
need a Lucio speed boost. I have a feeling that the Lucio speed boost would have helped, but
Yeah.
at least one of you probably would have continued to get really, really low each time, and then you would be at a disadvantage for the fight. I don't know if that would be the right solution. I'm sure that would have helped, like I said. I don't know if that was that would be the end all be all of it.
Fully operational.
Trying to get my ult.
Nerf this.
I kind of prefer pushing right side. It just gives you more options, right?
Yeah. Well, it gives
Pushing
you
right
this, like, high
side,
ground.
I actually am not entirely sure how to push right side correctly. I've never actually successfully done it.
I think it depends on what you're running. So, because like what
Like
typically
I think you do
in my
definitely need a
mind-
Lucio to push right side. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But I think it's also, like, if we're going right side, especially I think if we have, like, a soldier or something, I think pushing right side is great, because, like, then you can just kind of install him up here. You know, where they are and what they're running. If they're running Widow, he might not want to chill here the entire... But he has this room to fall back on if he needs, right? And then Zen can hang out up here with him, and then they have to decide, and, like, if the tanks drop down on point, they have to decide, like, do we dive the soldier, or do we contest the point?
Yeah, well, I mean, if
kind of like what
they're
you're saying,
smart,
it's
they'll
like a
do one
split.
of the things that I described to you earlier, like tickle the
Yeah.
high ground or commit a diva to him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So remember, it's
Right.
not an unbeatable strategy. It's definitely an
No.
advantage, but maybe you want to like make sure your diva's thrusters stay off cooldown so that he can go up and give him the support he needs if he starts getting dove or something like that.
Also, I think in one of our early matches or something, like I was on Diva and they were trying to do that. So I came up here. They were running a Mei, a soldier, and a Pharah, and all three of them came in here to deal with me. Entire rest of their team to like die outside because it was like a 5v3. Busy like 3v1ing me in here,
Easy mode.
and I stalled them long enough that it destroyed the push. That was
Made the rest
was
of the
actually
push a
pretty
5v3.
apparently I wasn't. That's the thing. I wasn't because here's the bad thing too is that they used Lucio beat to initiate. Out, and they all jumped down, and I knew Soldier would stay up there, so I went up to go deal with him because I didn't want him up here, obviously, right? And so I'm dealing with him, and Mei has not yet jumped down, so she turns around and starts freezing me. I get the mega, and then all of a sudden Farah shows up out of like I kill one of them somehow, and then
That's
Farah
great.
shows up with 2 HP, and I kill her.
That's really great.
I don't know. It was weird. Like I think we still ended up losing eventually, but that one push was just really funny because I was like, I really hope you guys are winning because literally 3 of them are on me right now.
Wow. I think that's pretty much everything though.
I think so.
As
One
far
thing
as
I really want to try is like a pincer dive. I've been seeing
Yeah.
that a lot lately.
Oh, is that what I was talking about earlier on
It is splitting
Yeah.
the team up into 2.
So it's sort of like you keep the tanks on mid back here, and then you send your DPS in here, just the DPS, and then on your tank's orders, everybody commits their movement abilities to start the dive in from the different sides. Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Yeah, kinda. Like when I watch the pros, they like just hide, like one
Yeah,
person
yeah.
hide, and then
Yeah.
It would involve doing that because you got to make
One
sure
thing I
everyone's
would
mobility
find
is
good
set.
is just having someone rush the point here to distract, and then the rest of the team diving.
Like Tracer, if we're running Tracer,
Yeah.
Tracer or Sombra comes back here and just says like, I'm taking the point, come back. Like basically it moves them out of position. From
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
yeah.
stroke. Moves them
I feel
back
like
so that you
target
can
calling
dive on
would be
the
good.
Oh, sorry.
Something I just thought of, which might help us out too. Like we kind of have just like dive down like we all have like our heroes that we play and we can play dive.
Yeah.
But like we don't really have any other like I guess quote unquote cookie cutter strats or like cookie cutter hero comps. Because outside of dive, we all get really confused as to like what to actually play.
Yep.
So like maybe as a very base before like, well, getting into map specific would help, but at a very base, we should have like outside of dive, like either another like 2 other like comps that we can like fall back on, and just like have something very cookie cutter to start with.
I agree to that. That way, we actually are good at running a comp. Like,
I'm back in the fight.
Like even though it's completely outdated, but maybe we could learn like Beyblade or something like that.
Yeah.
So something very cookie cutter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always nice to have more potential compositions in your back pocket.
Yeah.
I feel like we do okay with Pharaoh. We can try working on that a little more.
Like we have like a lot of random projectile players, but then it's like at other times too, we're caught out where we like need like a tracer and a Genji or like a tracer and a hit scan, and then we're like, wait, all we have are these projectile players.
I actually think we need Reaper more lately, because so many people have been trying that quad tank.
And that's another funny issue we have is like, I have a Reaper, but who else has a Reaper?
Or who else has a D.Va?
Yeah.
In that situation, maybe you and Mango just switch and he goes Zarya, and you go Reaper.
We should have Mango play some more Zarya.
Yeah. Like, Forest can Reaper, but Junkrat is also so good against multi-tank.
So like, what was like peak? Let's go to that Beyblade example. What was peak Beyblade? It was Reaper, Ana, Reinhardt.
Yeah.
I don't actually
even
remember the
Those were the
Beyblade
days.
meta. I wasn't here for the Beyblade meta.
Oh my god, it was so good.
Like, I feel like Beyblade also works partially because Nano gave the speed boost, which
Yeah,
is
that-
like,
that's definitely
the
why it
weakness.
works.
so it's like I don't
have
think
that
I don't
anymore.
think Beyblade is viable everywhere, but definitely on these like close quarter defense points, like Reaper is really good on point B here, and defense IMO. Like I know
Yeah,
Forrest had
Reaper's
a
pretty
hard
good
time
on
attack,
second
but-
point especially, actually.
Yeah.
Especially when he like jumped from high ground onto point. It was like the worst because it would like speed
It
through
is
the
the
whole
worst.
place.
It is the worst because you can't run away from him, and unless
Well, that
you
gives me
have
an
your
idea,
Diva-
actually. Ooh, I just thought of something. I'm gonna bring this up to my team later. So
Oh god.
we have a strat. Up here is a standard hold spot now, right? Like this is a spot you see a lot of teams holding, and like I said, the solution to that, the way you're supposed to counter it, standard, is you get to here, you commit your movement abilities to get underneath them, but
Right.
you don't always need both DPS or all 6 players up on this high ground with you. Sometimes you have one or
Right.
two that you want somewhere else. So what if your second DPS goes Reaper and hides under here, and then as soon as all the mobility abilities are committed, he steps out and starts eating the tanks alive.
And then someone drops down. and helps
Yeah.
him.
And then you drop down and start the brawl at a massive advantage.
Oh my god.
And then everyone has to like fight on point anyway, and Reaper's just very
Yeah.
good at like.
Reaper is
horrifying.
amazing for point brawls, dude. He's so good at point brawl.
Really is. It's very irritating.
Like he's almost as good as Reinhardt. Assuming you can aim.
Him getting like the drain on like bullet hits was like the greatest thing to happen to him.
I agree.
And it sucks too because ever since that happened, he like hasn't seen play, but now he's much better than he was during Beyblade.
I mean, he's seen some play on Temple of Anubis. I think that's it, though. My team runs him
Horizon.
on defense on
And-
Horizon. Yeah.
Junker Town if you're London.
Oh
I think
yeah.
all the
They
I
play
think
him on
Really?
a Junker Town attack.
Reaper
it's the
on
funniest thing.
Junkertown? I've never heard of that.
I need to watch it 'cause
London
it's
brought
amazing.
him out on attack.
That's so weird. Why? What was the
Well,
point?
London also plays like the attack May on Junkertown too.
Oh, yeah.
I want to play attack May if we run May.
A good May is the most annoying because like no one knows how to deal with her anymore.
No one knows how to deal with a May because she's so unpopular.
Well,
like-
it's not just that. It's like the best way to deal with May are like the best counters to May are also unpopular.
Fully operational.
Well, so here's the other thing. May in ladder is actually really effective if you have a good May, because the
Yeah,
way you
'cause
beat
no
her
one knows
is
how
by
to
playing as a team and going in together and committing to things together so that she can never isolate someone, which is what her whole kit is based around. Her kit is based around isolating people. So if you stick together and you play as a team and you save the abilities to peel for each other and all that fancy stuff, then she's useless, and that's why you don't see the pros ever play her except for stall. But in ladder, nobody does that stuff.
Hi.
Like at all.
Nerf this.
So I don't know what that is. I think the thing too about May is like
All systems checked out.
personally, I feel like the best counters for her are like Reaper and Ana because the Ana nade will just kind of okay.
Well,
Because
she did
Cryo
recently get
Freeze
the buff that
removes
made
it
it so that
now.
Cryo Freeze undid the Ana nade.
Yeah, but at least now you can force it. I guess you can force it out with nade, or if you nade her right after she uses it, you know. But
And so here's another trick.
Apparently, also you could throw a Junkrat trap on top of the on top of a frozen May, and it'll actually fall in, and then when she comes out, she'll get trapped.
That's hilarious and terrible.
The trap literally clips through and sits underneath her.
That's perfect.
You can.
So here's a small
you
tip:
can
if there's a
also-
Mei on the enemy
yeah.
team stalling you out on a point, focus
Yeah.
the Mei. Like I know it seems counterintuitive since she's gonna cryo freeze and undo the damage, and she'll get the 5 seconds of stall anyways. But if you can force her to use cryo freeze instantly and then switch to someone else for 5 seconds and then switch back to the Mei, that's the best way to get her out of your hair. It's the same with Reaper actually. You want to like dive him first so that he doesn't have Wraith form, and then you can really kill him for good. It's the same logic that goes into the take a breather actually. You want to scare the safety abilities out so that they become really squishy.
The other good way to do it, and also I feel bad for Taimu because people were like complaining, or not complaining, the commentators were like, no, he missed his cryo freeze, he wasn't on the point, but actually he cryo freeze to avoid getting stunned.
Yeah.
It was actually an insane reaction, and it was like unfortunate because
So Rondo wasn't in the Royal Rumble, but she signed a contract.
She was there, just not in the Royal Rumble.
Who won, by the way?
Who you think won?
Asuka.
Duh.
I knew it. They were gonna let Shinsuke and Asuka win, and now they're gonna full force steal New Japan talent.
Target eliminated.
Kota Ibushi, here we come.
Dude, how
Sorry,
many
we just got
leaves are on
wrestling in
this
here for a
thing?
second.
Like, you can just shoot this and leaves fall off of it all day.
I'm on low, so it
Oh,
doesn't
you
matter
got,
if
I
it
have
leaves.
I have all my graphic settings on the highest. And like when you shoot the
Like,
vines
what?
here, leaves fall off. It's like a
Okay.
particle effect, and there's so many.
it's really funny. And then I realized that some shit, like widows can shoot through things that like if you're on low you don't see them, and then I'm like, what is going on?
I know I should make my graphic settings on low. I know I should.
So
I
counterintuitive. Like, why
It's-
is it actually easier to play the game?
like
on
I
low
know I
graphics?
should, but I don't think
I
I'm
know,
going
it's
to.
like-
The game's
that's
just
the
too
same with-
pretty.
Annoying.
The game's
It
just
was the
too
same with
pretty. I
old
can't.
Counter Strike, where like old
It's the
Counter
same
Strike
with
and old
PUBG
Quake,
too.
you played at like you played everything on low, and then like for Quake, you played on the lowest resolution.
It's really bad for that in PUBG, because in PUBG, it's specifically designed so that you can hide among flora, like camouflage. So if you turn off the flora, then your enemies don't have that advantage anymore. And so like you have to turn off the flora if you even want to have a hope of playing. Otherwise, people will see you in bushes that you thought were there but aren't on their screen. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
like Fortnite's not as bad about it.
Well, Fortnite has a very arcadey feel. Like the bushes that you're meant to hide in are very like explicit. They're like, these are the bushes that you can hide in. It's not like you can crouch down in the tall grass and hope no one sees you. It's like, these are the bushes, you can hide in these bushes. It's like part of the map geometry, not a particle effect.
You can
This
actually
is my
get you can
bush.
actually get a bush, and
Yeah.
you like become a bush.
Exactly.
There are many like it, but this one is mine.
I'm gonna get some water. I'll be right back.
Do we want to go do something while we're all here?
We can. Let me just
Who's not in this group? Right
get another bowl of curry real quick.
now?
Poor Sparks down to 3,300.
I gotta eat too.
Ouch.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Look at you being all plot and shit. Why do I gotta be the loser of the group?
Pores, I was just talking to Spark about this. Do you think it would be helpful for you if we played with Spark, and then you can kind of give you?
Oh, I've played with Spark.
Do you want to play more with Spark so that you can
All
walk
right.
us through?
Hi. What?
I want to play.
I heard my name. What?
Oh, I
We're,
was-
we're just talking shit about you.
Oh wow. I
Not
mean,
really.
I expected that. So. I know I'm
Nah,
pretty
I
crap.
know Boston fan is just not. Cool.
Hey, they're doing better. First Western team to beat a Korean team in the league. Okay, we got
Boston,
something.
I'm cheering for Boston. They were like ultimate underdog, and they're doing pretty hot right now.
So here's the thing, right? I think I've said this before to you guys. They have a lot of raw mechanical skill, but none of them had played on a LAN event before. And so it was
Yeah.
predicted that they would get exponentially better as they played, but this, like, it was super fast.
Yeah.
They're like they must be grinding, or
Oh
their
my
team
God.
just like
I heard
has
that they
a
have
lot
the
of
toughest
natural
coach in the
synergy,
league.
But
I heard that their coach's solution to things is literally, like, yell at the players.
oh no.
You're worthless!
Like, they have a
Get
really
better!
tough coach.
Although, you know who seems amazing though? I mean, I am not strictly an Outlaws fan, but Tyrone.
I am. Woo!
Tyrone is.
Fuck yourself.
Oh, real
we
quick,
didn't know that.
Bye, stream.